He's not gay, he's just in love with controlling me. They say the CEO doesn't know anyone below the 3rd floor. He doesn't remember names, doesn't make eye contact, doesn't care. I liked that about him. There's something comforting about being invisible in a place like this. Everyone here is trying to climb, clawing their way up the corporate ladder with shiny teeth and espresso breath, stabbing each other with compliments and passive-aggressive emails. Me? I just wanted a steady paycheck and a working printer. I'm the kind of assistant who blends into elevators, eats lunch at his desk. No one really talks to me unless something needs stapling or someone spilled coffee on their meeting schedule. And that includes the CEO. Owen Voss. Tall, sharp, terrifying. Built like a luxury car, no one's allowed to touch. I'd seen him exactly 5 times in person, never spoken to him. He didn't know my name, didn't know my face. Or so I thought until today. The email came at 11:08 a.m. From Executive Assistant to Owen Voss. Subject, immediate request. Mr. Voss would like to speak with you. Now. 36th floor, office 3601. I stared at it like it might be malware, or a prank, but it wasn't. So I saved my draft, smoothed down my shirt, and made the long, silent elevator ride up to the top floor, where the lighting is colder, the air sharper, and the chairs probably cost more than my rent. The receptionist didn't say a word, just nodded and waved me toward a pair of tall glass doors. They slid open on their own. Inside was a desk, a window, and Owen Voss. He didn't look up at first, just signed something, slid a folder shut, and finally raised his eyes to me. They were green, sharp, like something polished too much. You're Nolan, right? His voice was low, perfect, completely unreadable. I nodded. Yes, sir, Nolan Keller. I wasn't sure if... It's not a mistake, he said. Sit. So I did, and I waited. He looked at me for a few seconds, studying me like he was trying to figure out what I was made of. Then he reached into a drawer, pulled out a manila envelope, and pushed it across the desk toward me. I opened it. There was a check inside, already signed. $3,000! My name on it! I blinked. I think this is meant for someone else. It's for you, he said, calm, like this was the kind of conversation he had every day. There's a gala this Friday, a public event. I need you to come as my date. I didn't move. I'm sorry? You'll wear a suit, smile, let me hold your hand, kiss me once, that's all. My brain short-circuited. You want me to... pretend to be your boyfriend? Yes, he said. That was it. No hesitation, no embarrassment, just fact. I looked back at the check like it might explode. Why me? He tapped his pen once against the desk. Because you're forgettable, obedient, safe. Wow, flattering. I told the board I was seeing someone, he continued. It's part of a new partnership we're pursuing, with a major LGBTQ+ media brand. They want representation. They want authenticity. He smiled, and it was the scariest thing I'd seen all day. So, he said, we're giving it to them. I should have said no. Should have laughed, quit, walked out, done literally anything else. But $3,000 is hard to ignore when your fridge is half empty and your bank app keeps sending you passive-aggressive reminders about your student loan debt. I swallowed. And the kiss? It's for the cameras, he said, then paused. Unless you'd prefer otherwise. He said it like a joke, but didn't smile. The night of the gala. I told myself I'd just stand there, hold his arm, smile for a few photos, and go home. $3,000. That's what this was about. A transaction. One night, one lie. The gala was exactly what I expected. Cold champagne, shiny floors, people who talk with their teeth. I stood next to Owen in a stupidly expensive suit I didn't own 2 days ago, nodding like I belonged. He was charming. All smooth answers and quiet laughs. He introduced me as Nolan, but didn't explain who I was. Not at first. Then the cameras came, and that's when it happened. Owen leaned down, brushed my hair back with his fingers like he'd done it 100 times before, and kissed me. Right there. in front of everyone. His hand cupped my jaw, gentle, familiar. And I froze. For a second. Just a second. Then I kissed him back. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to look fake. Maybe I panicked. Maybe it was the way his thumb moved, slow against my cheek, like he'd forgotten this was supposed to be pretend. The flashbulbs popped. And just like that, the lie had a face. 2 days later. It started with the company newsletter. CEO Owen Voss makes waves at charity gala with boyfriend Nolan Keller, the couple everyone's talking about. Boyfriend. Not assistant, not fake date, boyfriend. I stared at the headline for a long time, rereading it like it might change. Like the letters would rearrange and spell out something less ridiculous. Less loaded. There were photos. Dozens of them. Ones I didn't even know were taken. Me looking up at him, laughing. Him with a hand on the small of my back like he belonged there. Like I belonged to him. And the worst part? I looked happy. Genuinely happy. Like someone in love. I choked on my coffee, burned my tongue, tried texting him. Can't talk, meeting. Nothing else. The next day I was listed as personal guest on the boardroom lunch schedule. The day after that, a new badge appeared on my desk, with a different clearance level. Access to executive floors, private elevators. My name wasn't Nolan Keller anymore. It was his boyfriend. And part of me didn't hate it. A few days later, we were at some dinner downtown. Investors, journalists, too many forks and not enough air. The kind of event where everything gleams like money. I was seated next to Owen, obviously, as if there was ever another option. He didn't say much at first, just touched my elbow when someone passed behind me, leaned close when he asked if I liked the wine, let his fingers brush my wrist when he reached for his glass. And halfway through the salad course, he took my hand. Just like that. No warning, no cue, no cameras flashing. He just held it. Like it was normal. Like I was his. I kept waiting for someone to say, "Smile," for a photo op, a setup, a reason. But no one was watching. It was just us. And he didn't let go. Later in the car, the air between us felt too thick to breathe. "This wasn't the deal," I said, finally. Owen didn't look at me, just stared out the tinted window, city lights flickering across his jaw. His hand was resting on my thigh. It hadn't moved since we got in. "We're convincing people," he said. "This is how we do that. Even when no one's around." Silence. Then he turned, looked right at me with those unreadable green eyes and said, "You think I'm pretending when it's just us?" I didn't know what to say, because sometimes I didn't think he was. Sometimes it felt like I was the one pretending. He leaned in slowly, brushed a kiss against my cheek. Not romantic, not calculated. Soft. Real. "Babe," he whispered. "Relax. Babe." That word shouldn't have meant anything. But my chest tightened like he'd reached inside and pulled a string I didn't know existed. After that, it got worse. Or better. I still don't know. He started choosing what I wore to events. Not in a controlling way, not exactly. More like, wear the navy, it brings out your eyes. You want to look like someone I'd fall for, right? He started walking on the outside of the sidewalk, placing a hand on the small of my back when he crossed the street. He started walking on the outside of the sidewalk, placing a hand on the small of my back when he crossed a street. Telling waiters he's allergic to shellfish before I could even speak. He remembered how I took my coffee, my comfort food when I was stressed. That I get cold easily, even in summer. Sometimes late at night, he'd text just 2 words. "Still up?" And I'd lie there staring at my screen, heart pounding like I was 17 with a crush. I kept telling myself it was all part of the act. That he was just good at this. That Owen Voss, the man who didn't even know the names of his own interns, was simply playing a role. But then he started laughing around me. Not politely, not for show, laughing. At stupid jokes I made. At nothing at all. He started asking how my day was. but I thought of a pitch if I liked working on the new project. He touched my knee under the table, let his fingers linger. Sometimes he looked at me like we were the only people in the room. Sometimes it felt like I couldn't breathe unless he was looking at me. And that's when I realized I wasn't pretending anymore either. A week later, it started with flowers. I walked into the office Monday morning and there they were. Pale white flowers in this fancy-ass glass vase, just sitting on my desk like I lived in a rom-com. No note, no explanation. I just stood there, staring at them like they might explode. Then my phone buzzed. Owen. You looked tired today. Thought these might help. I didn't reply. Mostly because... what the hell was I supposed to say? Thanks for the anxiety bouquet? But I didn't throw them out either. I watered them the next day, like an idiot. A couple nights later, I got a calendar invite. Just said, dinner, private residence. No address, just that. At 7 p.m., a black car pulled up to my building. Driver said one word, Voss. I considered pretending to be dead. Instead, I got in. Owen answered the door shirtless. This isn't work-related, is it? I asked. No, he said. You skipped lunch again. You do that when you're stressed. I'm not stressed. You're down 4 pounds. Are you tracking my weight? I asked half-jokingly. He didn't answer. Dinner was salmon, steamed asparagus, wine I didn't know how to pronounce. I swirled the glass like I'd seen people do in movies. You're not supposed to do it like that, Owen said. He took it from my hand, did it himself. Slow. Perfect. And handed it back. You like controlling people, huh? I muttered. He looked me dead in the eye. I like taking care of things that are mine. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. The next morning I wore my usual stuff. Blue sweater, dark pants, nothing dramatic. Owen saw me in the hallway and immediately said, "Go home and change." Excuse me? You look soft, he said, like it was a crime. People look at you and see me. You should look like someone I'd fall for. Oh, so now you're dating me? He didn't blink. I didn't lie about choosing you. Later I changed, wore the shirt he left folded in my office drawer last week. Because arguing felt harder than giving in. And when he smiled at me across the meeting table, I couldn't breathe. Not in a cute way, in a what is happening to my life kind of way. Later that night I got coffee with a friend from college that night. Just coffee, 2 hours max. The next morning, Owen. Next time you make plans, tell me first. I just stared at the message. Then I replied, You're not actually my boyfriend. He replied instantly. Could have fooled me. Before I knew it, it started to feel like a trap. One morning, the security guard handed me a new work badge. Only gave me access to Owen's floor. Not even the break room. I stormed into his office. I can't even microwave my lunch anymore? You have coffee in my kitchen. That's not the same. You don't need distractions. You need to focus. God, Owen, you're acting like we're married. He stood up, walked over, calm as hell. You think I act like this with people I don't love? That shut me up. Because... love? What the hell was I supposed to do with that? That night I just sat in the dark in my apartment, phone lighting up like fireworks. Owen, are you mad at me? Tell me what I did wrong. I can fix it. I didn't respond. But I didn't block him either. Because honestly, part of me liked it. Liked the way he looked at me. Liked feeling important. Liked being... his. Even if it wasn't healthy. Even if I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Even if it felt like I was slowly drowning. Because when Owen Voss wants you, he doesn't let go. 3 days later. The deal went through on a Thursday. Biggest partnership in company history. Celebration everywhere. Champagne in the conference rooms, glittering emails from the board. And no one needed us anymore. No more red carpets, no more interviews, no more smiling like my jaw didn't ache. It was supposed to be over. That was the whole point. The fake relationship. The lie, the pretending, it had run its course. We got what we needed. I thought maybe he'd say thank you, maybe shake my hand, maybe tell me I could go back to being invisible again. Instead, he called me into his office and handed me a folder. I thought it was a severance packet. Inside, a raise. A letter saying my student debt had been paid off, as a gesture of gratitude. A silver key card, engraved with the name of some ridiculous luxury building I'd never even stepped foot in. Unit 1702, Owen said, like it was nothing. It's yours now. I assume you'll want to be close to me. I blinked. I never asked you to. You didn't have to, he cut in. Calm. Final. Like this was already decided. This isn't about the company anymore, Nolan. It's about us. Us. There was no us. I should have said that. I should have stood up, tossed the folder back at him, told him to stay the hell away from me. But I didn't say anything. I just sat there, silent, frozen, holding the folder like it was some kind of bomb. And the worst part, I didn't even know what I felt. Confused, terrified, flattered, trapped. Because here was this man, this powerful, untouchable CEO, doing things no one had ever done for me. Paying off my loans, giving me a place to live, telling me I mattered. And I hated that part of me wanted to believe him. That maybe this was real. That maybe I was wanted, cared for, chosen. But I also knew what it really was. Control wrapped in kindness. Possession dressed up like love. Later that night, I tried to resign. Typed the email, hit send. It bounced. I called HR. They transferred me to the CEO's personal assistant. Which, of course, is me. I stared at the phone, at the folder, at the key card on my desk, and I realized I wasn't being asked to stay. I was being kept. And somehow, some twisted part of me didn't run. I stayed, because it was easier, because I was scared. Because no one had ever made me feel this seen and this small at the same time. Because maybe I was already his. The next morning, I walked into HR the next morning. Face to face, no email, no trail. The woman at the front desk smiled politely and told me my file had been flagged as non-transferable. What does that mean, I asked. She hesitated, then said, it means you report directly to Mr. Voss. Any contract or role changes have to be cleared through him. I laughed. You're kidding. She wasn't. I went home, or to the apartment Owen bought for me. I found new towels in the bathroom, my favorite coffee already in the pantry, a framed photo of us, laughing at some event I barely remembered, sitting on the kitchen counter. I hadn't put it there. That night I tried again, packed a bag, booked a train out of the city, got as far as the lobby, and Owen was there, leaning against the wall like he'd been waiting all day. Where are you going, he asked, voice calm. I stared at him. I'm leaving. No, he said softly, you're not. He stepped closer, not threatening, not loud, just close. You don't need to run, Owen said. You're safe. You're mine now. He said it like a promise, like comfort. But my hands were shaking. Yours? I asked, voice low. Since when? He didn't answer. He just looked at me for a moment, like he was deciding something. Then he walked over slowly, closed the space between us like it didn't matter, and kissed me. Hard, certain. Like he was staking a claim, like he was branding it into my skin. Mine. I didn't kiss him back. I didn't stop him either. When he finally pulled away, his hand lingered on my face for a second, like he was memorizing the shape of me. Then he just walked out, left me standing there, alone. I pressed a hand to my lips, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't just some game anymore, not a harmless lie, not just pretend. It was a cage, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped holding the key. A few days later, I couldn't breathe. I was pacing my apartment. His apartment. The keycard he gave me still sat on the kitchen counter like it belonged there. Like I belonged here. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. My inbox was still bouncing back my resignation email like the whole company had quietly turned it into a joke I wasn't in on. And all I could think was, I need to get out. I couldn't stay in this weird limbo anymore. This not quite relationship, this not quite job. I was losing track of what was real. I don't remember walking up the stairs. I just remember the doorknob under my hand. Cold, my chest tight, my head screaming. Then I was inside. I didn't knock. I slammed the door open so hard it shook. Owen didn't even blink. He looked up from his laptop like I was right on time. Like I was expected. "Nolan," he said softly, like it meant something. "You don't get to say my name like that," I snapped. He paused. "Like what?" "Like it belongs to you." I shut the door behind me. "You don't get to act like this is real, like I'm yours. You made this, Owen. You faked a relationship and pulled me into it without asking. You bought me an apartment. You were rewriting my life and calling it love." He watched me, still, careful, like I might shatter. "You tell me what to wear, where to stand, what to say. You send me texts at midnight like we're dating. You sit too close. You act like I'm..." "Because you are," he said. That stopped me. His voice was low, steady, too calm for the storm in my chest. "You are mine, Nolan. I just never knew how to say it." I stared. "This started because of a campaign. You faked being gay for a promotion." "I faked it," he said slowly, "because I wanted a reason to touch you." My heart kicked. "I saw you every day, Nolan. Always quiet. Always doing everything right. No one noticed you. But I did. I watched you count the seconds before you spoke in meetings so you wouldn't talk over anyone. I watched you apologize for breathing too loud. You smiled at everyone, but never for yourself." He opened a drawer, pulled out something. A photo. It was me, sitting at my desk, unaware, smiling. "You smiled like that once," he said, "and I spent months trying to make you do it again." I didn't know what to say. My chest was burning, my head was spinning. "I couldn't ask you out," he said. "I'm your boss. It would have been wrong. But the second they wanted a gay CEO, I said yes. Because it meant I could hold your hand in public. It meant I could tell you I liked the way you looked in a tie. I could keep you." "That's not love," I said, voice shaking. "That's obsession." His voice cracked. "It's both." He crossed the room. I stepped back, but not fast enough. It wasn't soft, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate. Like he was starving. Like he'd waited a year for this and couldn't stop now that he had it. And God help me, I kissed him back. For half a second. Then I pulled away. Pushed him off me, hands shaking. "I can't do this," I said. "I want to, but I can't. Not right now. Not like this." He didn't stop me when I turned to go. Didn't chase me. But I felt his eyes on my back the whole way out. And I knew he wouldn't let me go. Not really. After that, I stopped answering his calls, left his messages on read. Shut off the shared calendar, blocked his number, started working from home like I was sick. I thought if I distanced myself enough, he'd move on. Then I'd vanish again, like I was supposed to. But Owen didn't vanish. The first note showed up under my apartment door on a Thursday morning. Just a small, folded square of thick paper. No envelope, no name. "Are you eating enough?" I stared at it for 5 minutes before I crumbled it and threw it away. The next day there was a meal on my doorstep. The kind I used to get from the cafe near work. My exact order, still warm. I left it untouched. Then came the photo. Framed, placed on my bookshelf while I was out. It was us, on the rooftop after the press gala, just before midnight. We weren't posing, weren't even aware of the camera. I was laughing. He was looking at me. I never remembered seeing it taken. I didn't remember laughing like that. My hands shook when I touched the frame. For a second I thought about hurling it across the room, but I didn't. I put it back, and that night, I didn't sleep. A few days later, I woke up with a headache that split behind my eyes like lightning. My mouth was dry. My skin smelled like clean sheets, which made no sense. The last thing I remembered was sitting at some bar, hands around a glass I never finished, nodding politely through a terrible date I set up to move on yet barely cared about. He had a nice smile, but when he leaned in to touch my knee, I flinched like I was made of static. I remember walking out into the night, unsteady, the kind of drunk that makes the world spin sideways. But I don't remember getting home. And yet here I was, undressed, tucked in, my phone on the charger, a glass of water on the nightstand, my shoes neatly placed by the door, and a blanket draped over the couch. Like someone had sat there, watched me. I stared at my apartment like it might move if I blinked too hard. Then I grabbed my coat. About half an hour later, when I stormed into Owen's building, the doorman barely blinked. He called the elevator before I even asked, like he'd been told to expect me. I pounded on the penthouse door. Owen opened it like he wasn't surprised, like he knew. "You undressed me," I said, no hello. He didn't deny it. "You threw up in the lobby." My stomach dropped. "I carried you up, cleaned you up, you were freezing." "You didn't ask." His jaw twitched. "I wasn't going to leave you like that." "You don't get to decide what I need." Silence. I stepped in, pushing past him. "You drugged me?" "No," he shut the door behind me. "You were just sad and drunk, and with someone who didn't know how to take care of you." I turned, voice cracking. "You don't know how to take care of me!" He looked at me like that hurt. Then softly, "You shouldn't let strangers touch you." His eyes found mine, steady, unapologetic. "You don't know what they want." I stood in the middle of his perfect penthouse. Every surface clean. A mug on the counter with my favorite tea blend. A throw blanket on the couch I recognized. From my apartment. One of mine. He hadn't bought it. He'd taken it. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I walked out before I could do either. A week later, the night started perfect. I was on yet another date. I figured a distraction was what I needed to move on from this mess, and who knows if I'd end up meeting a truly great guy. The guy was charming, funny, sharp. He listened when I talked, made me laugh without trying too hard, even ordered dessert for the table to share because I said I couldn't decide. He held the door open, touched my arm when he leaned in, didn't stare at his phone once. It was everything a date was supposed to be, and I hated every second of it. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he didn't do anything wrong. Because everything he did, the way he smiled, the way he looked at me like he was trying to get to know me, felt like watching a play from backstage. I could hear the lines, see the cues, but I wasn't in it. I wasn't there. Because the only person who ever made me feel real was the one I ran from. I left before the check came. It started raining the second I stepped outside. One of those mean, cold summer storms that soaks you in seconds and makes you feel like the world's punishing you for not knowing what you want. But I did know. I knew exactly what I wanted. I just wasn't ready to admit it until now. By the time I reached his building, my shoes were filled with water. My shirt clung to my skin like regret. I was shaking so bad I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or just everything finally catching up. I took the elevator up. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I knocked once. Owen opened the door in a t-shirt, barefoot, like he hadn't expected anyone. His hair was mussed, his expression unreadable, and for one terrifying second, I thought he might close the door, but he didn't. He looked at me like something inside him had stopped breathing. I couldn't meet his eyes. Just for tonight, I whispered, voice already breaking. I don't know what I expected. Maybe for him to say no. Maybe for him to ask why now. But he didn't say anything. He just stepped aside, let me in. The door clicked shut behind me, and that's when I lost it. The sob came out of nowhere, loud and messy, and cracked down the middle. Like something inside me finally gave out. I tried to cover my face, tried to breathe, but my knees were weak and my chest was caving in, and Owen caught me. Didn't speak, didn't flinch. He just pulled me in, arms wrapping around me so tight I felt the steadiness of his heartbeat against mine. He just pulled me in, arms wrapping around me so tight I felt the steadiness of his heartbeat against mine. He held me like I was something worth holding. We slid to the floor, my tears soaking through his shirt. And he stayed like that, on the floor with me, legs tangled, my head buried in his chest, while I broke apart. Minutes passed. The crying slowed. My hands stopped shaking. I could breathe again. He still didn't let go. I looked up at him through blurry eyes, lips trembling, throat raw. My whole face was wet. Tears, rain, snot, everything. And still, he looked at me like I was beautiful. I wanted this, I whispered, voice cracking. You. I've wanted you for so long. I think I forgot how to want anything else. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I leaned in and kissed him. Soft at first, tentative, tear-salted. He kissed me back like he'd been holding it in for years, and then it deepened. Hands in hair, breaths hitching, bodies pulling closer. We didn't make it to the bed, but it didn't matter. Because wrapped in him, in his arms, his mouth, his heartbeat, everything finally made sense. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was home. The next morning, the sunlight came in soft, filtered through pale curtains pooling golden over skin and tangled sheets. I blinked awake slowly, like surfacing from a dream I didn't want to leave. Owen was still asleep beside me, arm flung over my waist, face pressed into the pillow, breathing deep and even. His hair was a mess. His shirt was bunched around his ribs from where I tugged at it sometime in the middle of the night. I didn't move, just lay there for a while, memorizing the way his mouth twitched faintly in sleep, the scar above his collarbone I hadn't noticed before, the warmth of his chest rising and falling against mine. Eventually, he stirred. Eyes cracked open, slow and squinting. When he saw me, he smiled, sleepy, crooked, like it was instinct. "Morning," he rasped. "Morning," I whispered back. We didn't say anything else for a while, just smiled like idiots. 20 minutes later, we were barefoot in his kitchen. I wore one of his shirts, too big, sleeves past my wrists, and nothing else. He kept eyeing me like it was the best thing he'd ever seen. Owen cooked, badly. I teased him for how many eggs he managed to ruin before I took over. He cut fruit and burned toast and snuck kisses between chopping strawberries. It felt domestic. Stupidly domestic. Easy. Like we'd done this 100 times before and would do it 100 times again. We sat on the counter to eat, legs touching, sharing coffee from the same mug. And somewhere between a bite of toast and the last sip of orange juice, I asked, "When did you know?" He glanced up, confused. "Know what?" "That you were, bi, gay." I shrugged one shoulder. "You've always been with women. I've seen the press galas, the dates, the headlines." He paused, then laughed, low and a little incredulous. "I'm not gay," he said. I blinked. "But we just..." "And I love you," he interrupted gently. "I do, more than anything." I stared at him, hard in my throat. He smiled again, softer this time, and leaned forward to press a kiss to my lips. Just a warm, lingering peck that made everything in me ache. Then he pulled back and said, "I don't know what I am. I never thought about it before. Never needed to." But then I saw you. This guy who didn't want to be seen, and I couldn't look away. My chest squeezed. He continued, voice low but sure. I don't know if I like men or not, but I know I love you. And that's the only thing that's ever felt true. I didn't answer. I just kissed him. Full, deep, certain. Like we were the only two people in the world, and for once, the world got it right. A few months later, my new office had windows, real ones. No skyline, no ego-polished glass walls. Just sunlight and the occasional pigeon that liked to stare me down like it owned the place. The room was smaller than before, less glossy, less intimidating. The chair didn't recline. The coffee machine hissed like it held a personal grudge. The view was of a cracked parking lot with oil stains and a single sad tree. But it was mine. I wasn't Owen's assistant anymore, not officially. I filed the transfer myself, accepted the pay cut, set my own hours, built my own calendar. He didn't fight me on it. He just bought the entire floor. I found out when the receptionist mentioned the new landlord. I nearly launched my monitor into orbit. When I called him, furious, he said, calm as ever, I needed a tax write-off. Coincidentally, it has excellent views of your parking lot. I hung up on him. Later that night, he came home with takeout. My favorite place with extra dumplings. He didn't apologize, didn't beg. Just kissed the corner of my forehead and handed me the bag like we were already fine. We weren't. But I let him stay. Because we were trying. We fought sometimes. Over stupid things. Over toothbrushes left in the sink. Over emails he forwarded without asking. Over how he still spoke to people like he was 3 moves ahead and couldn't be bothered to explain the rules. But we also laughed. A lot. We had routines, rituals, comfort. On Mondays he brought me coffee exactly the way I liked it. Still too hot, because he knew I liked to wait and savor it. On Wednesdays I left him Post-its in his suit pocket with dumb doodles or reminders to eat. On Fridays he made dinner. Badly, but I ate every bite anyway because it made him proud. He changed. Not for me, but because of me. He started asking before touching. He'd pause, hand outstretched, and wait for a nod, a look, anything. He made space in the closet, quietly. No speech, no performance. Just a row of hangers and a drawer that said, "This is yours now, too." I once caught him reading a book on boundaries, with a highlighter. The man who used to bark orders was highlighting things like validate your partner's autonomy. And I changed too. I stopped flinching when things felt good. I let him hold me when I had bad days. I let myself believe he wasn't going anywhere, because he didn't. Even when I shut down, even when I pushed too hard or cried over nothing or locked myself in the bathroom because the world felt like too much, he stayed. He sat on the other side of the door and read aloud from whatever book was nearby. Once he read me a cereal box. We were in love, in the real way. The unglamorous, unfiltered, healing kind of love that comes when two people decide to do the hard thing. Stay. It was a Sunday morning. Quiet, sun-drenched. Owen was standing barefoot in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with the concentration of a man defusing a bomb. I was sitting at the counter, still in his shirt, sipping coffee with syrup in my hair from the last time he tried to kiss me mid-pour. He turned to say something, and then just paused, looked at me. Not dramatically, not with any big speech on his tongue. Just looked at me like he was seeing something he'd been sure of for a long time. And then he said, casual as anything, "Marry me." I blinked. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated, like he was asking me to pass the salt. "We can do a courthouse thing, or Vegas, or whatever you want. Just marry me." I stared at him, heart pounding. "You don't even have a ring." He shrugged. "I'll get one, or 10, or none. I don't care. I just want to be yours." I laughed, pressed a hand to my mouth, shaking my head. "You're ridiculous," I whispered. "I know," he said, grinning, "but I love you." I slid off the stool, crossed the kitchen, curled my fingers into his shirt, and kissed him. Yes, I breathed against his lips. God, yes. He pulled me close, like he never wanted to let go. And maybe he wouldn't have to, because after everything, after all the lies and chaos and rewrites, we'd finally figured out how to write something real, something messy and honest and ours. Forever started with a burned pancake and a too soft kiss, and I wouldn't change a single thing. The end. Do you think a relationship that started with lies, control, and obsession can ever become real love? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome!